After my long absence, I'm glad to be back with this new weather forecast for Europe, but before we begin, here's a quick recap. My last video was released in late March as Storm Nelson brought widespread heavy rain and strong winds to parts of Western Europe, lasting for almost a week in some places. This caused flooding issues and even a rare tornado in Lisbon, Portugal. While I was away for 3 weeks, I didn't have much time to create videos, but I was still very busy watching the weather. I documented many weather events as they came through in North Carolina, including epic clouds and storms. If you would like to keep up with my weather watching endeavors outside of weather forecasts like this, make sure you subscribe to my Plus channel linked in the description down below. Now going back to Europe, this video is going to focus on a westward shift in the low pressure and cooler air as we head into May, allowing for an increase in warmth across Central and Eastern Europe. This shift in the temperature patterns is going to mean trouble for some of us, especially as severe weather season gets underway. All the details on that and more will be included in this discussion, so let's begin. First off, let's take a look at the upper air patterns such as the location and orientation of the jet stream. You can see how we have a trough or a dip in the jet stream over Central Europe, which was definitely more pronounced a couple days ago, but it is still there. Further west and east, you can see warmer and drier conditions, but as you'll see throughout this forecast, this is all going to change. The reason for this is because this dip in the jet stream is actually going to pivot its way northward, with a new dip in the jet stream developing over the western portion of Europe, therefore allowing for cooler air and more wet conditions to become prevalent across that area, even as far south as the Iberian Peninsula. And then at the same time, the area which was previously wet and cold, such as Central Europe, is going to quickly turn much warmer and drier. But despite this trend towards drier conditions across Central Europe, don't forget about the clash in temperatures as colder air comes from the west and warmer air from the south. This is going to introduce the risk of severe storms across this region by early next week, with weather models suggesting widespread convective available potential energy, also known as CAPE. Then, just after that system, we may see another one take a similar path, possibly leading to another round of severe weather. If you are within this red area that I've shaded in on this map, make sure you watch out for severe weather throughout the rest of April and especially by May. And then that smaller dark red area which I have centered over Germany, that's going to be an area that I'm watching especially closely as severe weather ingredients could be the most favorable in that area. This could include the risk of tornadoes, large hail, and damaging wind, so make sure you stay tuned for more updates. Back to the weather tracker map once again, there's a couple more things I wanted to point out for the rest of this month into May. One detail which may be overlooked is the very beneficial rainfall coming for eastern Spain. Right around April 26th into the 27th, which would be today into tomorrow, that low pressure system which we have closing in on Portugal right now is going to start heading back north by the weekend. So not only will we have colder air filling in behind this system, but also look at what's happening from North Africa into Spain. This right here is something which has lacked all winter long, which is a more favorable precipitation pattern. Throughout the winter season, we've seen lots of storms barreling in from the Atlantic, so typically much of the precipitation would get squeezed out across most of Portugal and Spain, but by the time it would reach Mediterranean Spain, there wouldn't be much precipitation left, and therefore we've had a very severe drought across that region. And now continuing our discussion on precipitation, here's what you can expect throughout the rest of this month. There's a gap in that green shade, especially around Central Europe, and that's the result of that shifting jet stream allowing for decreased precipitation in this time frame. But across Western Europe, especially further into the southwest, we see widespread moderate to heavy totals, especially around mountainous terrain. Next up, I've prepared a couple forecast maps which will basically summarize all the information we've discussed already. So let's start off with the temperature outlook for the rest of April. Lower pressures and wet conditions will lead to cooler than average conditions, especially across the west, being most noticeable in northern Africa into Iberia, with much of central, northern, and eastern areas expecting above normal temperatures, especially across the Middle East, where temperatures should run far above normal. For precipitation, it should be wetter than average for parts of Western Europe, excluding southwest Iberia into portions of the British Isles. Drier than average conditions will be more widespread and noticeable across Central and Southeastern Europe, coinciding with those above average temperatures. But don't let that deceive you because, like I mentioned earlier, severe weather is still going to be possible across this area despite the below normal precipitation totals for the rest of April. That's going to end today's weather forecast, but before we do conclude, here's photo of the day. We don't have one submitted from the community yet, so here's a picture I took a few days ago. If you are interested in submitting your own photos of any type of weather, make sure you send them to me through Instagram or Discord, and the links to both of those will be in the description. If you like this video, definitely consider subscribing for consistent weather updates, but for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.